When a homeless man approached Barron Trump asking for just $1, no one expected what would happen next. What started as a small act of kindness would spark a national movement, reunite a broken family, and change lives forever. The winter wind bit through the streets of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as people rushed along the bustling corner of Market Street and 13th Avenue. Among the sea of hurried commuters, a man named David sat slumped against the wall of an old deli. His cardboard sign, worn and barely legible, read, "Anything helps. God bless." At 45 years old, David's life had been reduced to this. Just a year ago, he had been a forklift operator, proud of his work and his ability to provide for his family. But after an unexpected layoff and a series of health issues, everything unraveled. Rent notices turned into eviction letters, and he found himself on the streets with nothing but the clothes on his back. Most people walked past him without a second glance. He had learned to expect it, the hurried steps, the avoidance of eye contact, the occasional sneer. Some days someone might toss a few coins his way, but it was never enough to make a real difference. That day felt no different until David noticed a pair of sneakers stop just a few feet away. These weren't ordinary sneakers. Clean and pristine, they looked like the kind only someone young and privileged would wear. David's curiosity piqued as he glanced up. Standing there was a teenager, tall and composed, with his hands casually tucked into the pockets of a sleek jacket. The boy was scrolling through his phone, completely unaware of the attention he was drawing. People around whispered, some even pulling out their phones to snap photos discreetly. David hesitated. Normally, he wouldn't approach anyone unless they acknowledged him first. But something about the boy's calm demeanor urged him to speak. "Hey, young man," David called out, his voice hoarse from the cold. "Can you spare $1?" The boy froze mid-scroll and tilted his head slightly, as if confirming what he'd just heard. Slowly, he turned to face David. For a moment, his expression was unreadable, and the noise of the city seemed to fade. "What do you need it for?" the boy asked. His tone wasn't harsh or dismissive. It was calm and direct. David blinked, caught off guard by the question. Most people either ignored him or threw coins his way without a word. "A cup of coffee," David replied hesitantly. "Maybe a sandwich, if I'm lucky." The boy stepped closer, slipping his phone into his pocket. "What's your name?" he asked. "David," he said quietly. "I'm Barron," the boy replied simply. The name struck a chord, but before David could piece it together, Barron reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp $100 bill. "Here," Barron said, holding out the bill. "This should cover more than coffee." David's eyes widened, disbelief washing over him. "Are you serious?" he stammered. "Why would you do this?" Barron shrugged lightly. "Because I can," he said. Then his tone softened, and he crouched down to meet David at eye level. "But this isn't just about the money," Barron added. "I want you to promise me something." David clutched the bill tightly, his hands trembling. "What's that?" "If I help you today," Barron said, "you've got to help yourself tomorrow. Deal?" The words hit David harder than he expected. No one had ever spoken to him like that, not with pity, but with expectation. Slowly, he nodded. "Deal." Satisfied, Barron pulled out a small notepad from his pocket, scribbled something down, and handed it to David. "Go here tomorrow morning," Barron said. "They'll help you out. Tell them Barron sent you." David unfolded the note, his fingers tracing the address written in neat handwriting. It was a local shelter he had heard of, but never visited. "Thank you," he whispered. Barron smiled faintly and stood, disappearing into the flow of the city. The crowd that had gathered murmured among themselves, snapping photos of Barron as he walked away. That night, David sat under a street lamp, staring at the $100 bill and the note in his hands. For the first time in months, he felt something he thought he'd lost: hope. The next morning, David found himself standing outside the shelter. The sign above the door read, "New Beginnings Outreach." Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. A receptionist greeted him warmly. "You must be David," she said. "We've been expecting you." The hours that followed were overwhelming. Caseworkers listened to his story without judgment, offering a warm bed, medical care, and enrollment in a job training program. For the first time in over a year, David felt like his life wasn't just surviving, it was moving forward. Meanwhile, the encounter between Barron and David had been captured on video by a bystander. The clip spread across social media like wildfire, sparking debates about privilege, kindness, and the power of small actions. Donations poured into the shelter, and volunteers stepped up to help. David, unaware of the viral video, focused on rebuilding his life. A week later, he reconnected with his estranged brother Mark, who had seen the video and sought him out. Their reunion was bittersweet, but it marked another step forward. As David lay in his shelter bed one evening, he thought about Barron's words. "Help yourself tomorrow." They weren't just words, they were a promise. And with each passing day, David was determined to honor it.